What's good, everybody? It is your boy Brandon Leake here. Spoken word artist, season 15 winner of America's Got Talent, Christian father, husband, whatever other moniker you want to give me. And I believe we're here for episode 8 of a podcast that I have deemed Vulnerability. And so today is a immensely relevant podcast for what usually just gets deemed men. But I believe that this podcast is far more wide-reaching into both men and women. And I'd like to talk about it. Just give me 1 second. So today I'm going to talk about a topic that a lot of people feel very antsy about. And then some people are just kind of indifferent about pornography. And I'm going to talk about the fact that I have struggled with a pornography addiction for about when was the first time I was exposed to it? 15, 16. I remember when it happened, I was with one of my cousins at the time, and he was like, yo, your pops, my father, my stepdad at the time, he got a stash, let's go watch it. And I was a church kid. I didn't really dive into that whole world or anything like that. And then once exposed to it, it's one of the most easily addictive substances in the world. And I can go into the whole biochemistry of the whole thing, but I got hooked on it. And I am now 31 and still have to make active decisions to reach out to accountability, to reach out to have safeguards on my phones, on my computers, and all sorts of things to keep me in check and in line from falling victim to this. And I want to talk about the ways that it can not only just negatively impact you in the here and now, but for those who are either married currently or have desires to be married, the ways in which it'll inevitably play itself out in some of those ways. For myself, I didn't walk into marriage a virgin. And one of the reasons for that was because I had exposed myself to pornography and the ways in which I had desensitized myself and my spirit to, being willing to go into some more sexual experiences, was introducing myself to them at such an early age. And so what ended up happening was there was a point of conversation between my wife and I, because my wife entered our marriage as a virgin. And we had a legitimate conversation before marriage about hey, yo, do you think that any of this will be comparative? That you'll be comparing me to the people who you've engaged with this in the past? And fortunately, I'd gone through a 3-year celibacy journey, but the potential cause of concern that would have between me and my partner is something I wish I could have spared my wife from having to go through. Because now that's so, because of my decisions of the past, that's a weight that she then had to carry. But not only that, whether consciously or subconsciously, our minds are wired to instantly compare experiences, to then be able to delve in and see what is what do we enjoy, and that becomes an unfair battle for not only the person who you're becoming wed to, but for your own self to have to go through. And so pornography robbed me of a lot of things, because not only was I desensitized so early and began to not just sexualize, myself, but other people, and began to pursue after it in unhealthy ways, but it also very much painted an image of sex that put me in a position that I was yo, I feel highly inadequate sexually at a lot of times, right? Once again, we're talking about a vulnerability podcast. Some people will say this part's TMI, but I suffer from ED. It's a whole thing for me in that regard. And so to to exist in a world that black men get over sexualized in a fashion where it's expected for us to be these like mandingo warriors for the culture, um, left me in a very insecure place sexually, where I even felt weird going into sex in marriage. And all of that originated from this pornography addiction that I was a part of. Um, and like, you know, God talks about these things. Like God talks about, sexual immorality. God talks about how our eyes are the gateway to our hearts and our soul. It states, uh, in Proverbs 4:20-22, my son, give attention to my words, incline your ears to my sayings. Do not let them depart from your eyes. Keep them in the midst of your heart, for they are the life to those who find them, and health for all their flesh. Um, and the idea that what we tend our ears and our eyes to inevitably becomes what we fill this vessel with is a true thing. And come to find out, I wasn't the only one who struggled with this. My wife and I will have a whole podcast where she can talk about her journey with it. But like, there are so many people who don't realize that their over sexualization of themselves in the world started so early, simply because it was a means to try to feel whole or try to feel cared for or loved, because the dopamine response that you get from that sort of a thing, that chemical response, will make you feel as if these impersonal people on the other side of the screen have some sort of affection or care for you, when in all actuality it'll just leave you fiending for more of it and going down a deeper rabbit hole to try to get the same hit. Because if you know anything about drugs, you know that you can't consistently do the same amount and be fine. It desensitizes your body, and you have to inevitably go up and higher and higher. Same thing happens in this same type of pornography rabbit hole. It goes from simply porn to then, having to do it in real life, and then having to do the things that you saw in porn in real life. And when we get to that, this will be one of the last things I'll say, because I don't like to mention people's names. But one of my friends, he talked about like, yo, I'm trying to get married now. I'm trying to find a partner now. And bro, like, due to all that I've watched, all that I've experienced, all that I've been a part of, I don't know if I could be with somebody who isn't as sexually explorative as me. And that's not necessarily to say that that's wrong, but that's an exploration that he could have saved and been able to encounter with his wife and with his soon-to-be partner for life. That instead of now having to consider, oh, yo, like, will she already be where I'm at? It could have been, I look forward to journeying this together and figuring out what we mutually enjoy, as opposed to me showing up to the table with these list of things of like, hey, I like this, I like this, I like this. Can you provide those for me? And so for some people, this is, they'll look at this and say, this don't apply to me. I don't see a problem with it. And if that's you, then that's cool. I'm speaking solely for those who feel a conviction about this sort of a thing, because I know I do. Because I wish I could have spared my own soul and my own spirit some of this, anguish that has happened due to my lack of obedience in this regard. And for yourself, if you're having this battle, I want you to know that there is victory. There is most certainly victory. Community is a big part of it. Having people you can turn to and lean on is a big part of it. And also setting up safeguards for yourself. Don't trust yourself in this regard. I'm telling you, you'll fall short, and there's grace for that. But it's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, when I didn't have safeguards, traveling on the road was a whole viper's pit that I fell into all the time. And now that I have these safeguards, now that I have people I reach out to, it becomes better. If you're desiring accountability for this, or if you're just somebody who has some thoughts or commentary on it, leave them in the comment section below. Would love to build with my folk in this community. Love y'all. Appreciate y'all.